We are limited because we are not using the rapid test kit, and it's because it's not been certified by the WHO, aside the margin of error. But then we take it that the challenge, and we believe that the NCDC is working hard on it. You will recall that we started from just about 5 laboratories, PCR-based, and now we have 13. And I recall that sometime last week or thereabout, the DG of our NCDC was here to tell us that the challenge even now has to do with people coming forward to be tested and the associated logistics. So I'm saying that in spite of the 13 laboratories that are presently functional, we can still do more if people show up to be tested. And we will improve in that regard. Of course, the issue of having to change strategy is inevitable because we have moved into community transmission. And therefore, we need to ramp up our response activities. We know the whole thing started from Lagos, which used to be the epicenter. But as we are moving on now, we can see that there is a rapid spread. So it means we also have to move to test more, to isolate more, and of course, to treat more where treatment is really required. So it has never been a situation of one size fits all. We know that along the line, as the situation demands, we will need to be innovative in our approach, or creative, and be adaptive, and also be flexible. And that's one of the things, or that's one of the reasons why we advise our people to use a face mask, and that it doesn't have to be the regular type, as some of us are using right now. It doesn't have to be medical mask or surgical mask. It could just be any cotton material that is suitable, that we can wash. We believe that this will go a long way to help. I think the question from a tirade, if I remember very well, it has to do with what has been the outcome, or how far with the traditional, complementary, and alternative medicine in terms of remedy for COVID-19. Yes, I remember that some time ago I did say that there had been requests made by some practitioners of herbal medicine laying claims to having remedies that could help or treat COVID-19. And I remember I did say then that we encourage these people to come forward with their remedy. But these remedies, they have to go through the proper protocol of assessing the efficacy. It's not enough for people to make claims, but we need to subject such claims to the protocol for assessment. And in this regard, the traditional, complementary, and alternative medicine department of the ministry, as well as the National Institute of Pharmaceutical Research and Development, they are working together to look at these claims being made. But I can also tell you that a lot of times, some of those who make this claim, they fail to really come up with remedies for proper protocol of assessment. Then there was a question regarding the certification on polio. Yes, the team, the African team that came around to assess our readiness, they came and we were given a clean bill of health. That is, that we were doing well as we approach the D-Day, which is supposed to be June, a couple of months from now. So they went around all the regions, the geopolitical zones for their assessment. They came in first to let us know what they want to do. And after moving around the 6 geopolitical zones, they also came back to give us a feedback. And the bottom line is that they were satisfied with what they saw in the various places they visited. So that gave us hope, and we're very excited for the report they gave. And so we are still working towards that, and we believe in the grace of God that come June, Nigeria will be certified polio free. Yes, we are not neglecting the other diseases like Lassa fever you mentioned. We are getting reports from the various states, particularly those states that appear to be the epicenter, and we have not really had the rise in the figures, so which means that we are not really having new cases. And what we know about Lassa fever is that it has a period where there is a spike. That's usually towards the end of the dry season. So it's like that period is kind of over, because we're not really having outbreak as we had earlier on in the year. I think Friday, your question was directed to that has to do with what we're doing regarding the situation in Kano. I'm sure the national coordinator will talk more about this, but I can just say that ordinarily what we will do, part of what we will do, is to increase the support for Kano. You recall that Kano and Lagos, they have the highest population, and naturally we will be worried what Kano or what Lagos has is also what Kano has in terms of population, in terms of the density of this population, and in terms of activities, commercial and otherwise. So we need to do more of contact tracing where we can. We will need to do more testing, more isolation, and of course treatment where we need to as well. I think the issue that was raised regarding Uyo, I hope I got it right, that is being looked into, and the NCDC will give us an update on it. I think the last I have here is testing for health workers. Well, for me, the testing for health workers will be both. That is, the first being routine testing, and of course the second one is as indicated. That is, if a health worker comes with symptoms that are suggestive, that health worker will necessarily need to be tested. And of course, under the basic guideline, if a health worker in any way has come in contact with COVID-19 positive case, that health worker naturally knows that he or she will have to go into self-isolation for the 14-day period. But as much as possible, what the Ministry of Health and other relevant agencies are doing is to ensure that our health workers, they are properly protected. And I did mention this in my earlier report, because we need to protect our health workers so that they are not unduly exposed. This is the basic thing, in fact, it's the minimum that we owe our health workers. We want to be sure that they are well protected, and that if and when the need arises for them to be tested, they will be tested accordingly. But I'm saying that in addition, there may be need for any health worker who reasonably feels that he or she has been exposed to submit himself for routine testing. Thank you.
The National Coordinator.
Thank you. Before I answer some of the questions I have, I would like to appeal to the floor to please stick to the issue of COVID. Let us not move on to other health topics. While they are important, there's the risk that we will dilute our effort, and I think we need to remain focused. So please, let's stick to the COVID issue for now. Thank you. So the issue of markets, yes, we will continue to monitor. As you know, here in Abuja, the markets are controlled by the FCT, and continue to work with them closely. It's not an easy decision. If we reduce the frequency of the markets, more and more people will be attending. If we increase the frequency, on the other hand, we may also have the same issue. So it's a balance, but we are looking into it, and we'll continue to monitor. Stay-at-home order, and the issue of cannabis. I would like to assure you that cannabis use is not part of the exemption criteria for violating the stay-at-home order. So it's really a law enforcement issue, and NDLEA, as other law enforcement agencies, will continue to monitor this. Kano. So we have been working quite closely with the state authorities in Kano. Over the weekend, we engaged directly with the state governor, and virtually over the last 2 days, I have been talking to people in Kano to find out what is going on. It's not very clear whether the reports that we're getting are actually factual or not, but they have set up a team that will be looking at investigating this further. In terms of what we are doing from the Abuja side, as you're probably aware, the DG and CDC has made an on-the-spot assessment yesterday. They just left Kano today. We've also sent rapid response teams to Kano. We continue to engage with the government in terms of testing. The test center in Kano started last week. We are also looking at opening more centers for sampling, for taking samples, so that we can increase the number of tests and also improve the efficiency of contact tracing. We continue to ask persons to respect the stay-at-home order in Kano, which was placed by the state government. The best way of avoiding catching COVID is really to keep your distance from others. We have also today discussed the Kano issue in detail at our PTF meeting, and will be reaching out to the state authorities to support enhanced surveillance. We definitely recognize the need for more testing, and also the need to reach out to communities to convince them to continue to support and cooperate with us while we work on reducing the impact of the pandemic. Thank you.
Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs.
Mr. Chairman, my colleagues, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I think let me start with a question on the CCT, the conditional cash transfer. That how are we doing the expansion of the registration? Well, we are using other models because, as I mentioned on this platform, we want to really focus on digitalizing this process. So we're using the BVN through the bank accounts, as well as mobile phone networks to identify these poor and vulnerable people in the society. That's going to be faster, and there's going to be transparency and accountability. On the issue of a lady showing that two members of a household being given the cash intervention, I think this is near impossible, because the process involved is a very, very tedious process where all critical stakeholders in the community are involved, the community leaders and the faith-based organizations, the leaders, the youth, the women leaders in that particular community. They are the ones that come up with a list of poor and vulnerable households in that community. And if we go through the list, individually they submit this list. And if we go through the list, a particular household belongs to the three of the lists submitted. I mean, they fall within these three, but maybe say the youth organization, they don't have that household in their list. You are not qualified to be in the register. So it is almost impossible for the same members of household to get this intervention. But we'll go back and investigate very well on this, but it's almost impossible. On the issue of the how are we giving the palliatives, I mean, the duration it covers. For the federal government, palliatives is for a minimum of 2 months. That's the package we have for the food relief. And even for the cash transfer, you may recall Mr. President directed that we give 2 months advance payment to these households. So I think we'll be able to adequately, cater for these vulnerable groups, given the 2 months package that we're giving them. There's another issue on the grains. Yes, 70,000 grains were approved by Mr. President should be given to the ministry, to the PTF, to the ministry, to distribute to the 3 affected lockdown states by the federal government, and then to the other frontline states. So far, we have deployed 279 trucks of these grains to these 3 affected states or locations locked down by the federal government: Lagos, Ogun, and the FCT. And we're making plans for the next deployment to the other frontline states. We have not taken all the 70,000, so we still have some grains in the silos. Metric tons is quite a huge number. 10,000 or 2,000 metric tons will require nothing less than 30 trucks to deploy. So it's quite a huge number, and there's nowhere we can put these grains. We have to leave them in the silos and be deploying as the need arises. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister of Aviation.
Good afternoon, gentlemen of the media. And also permit me that I address you, gentlemen of the media, because I was a long time ago corrected while I was in the House of Reps that there are no ladies and gentlemen of the media. They are all gentlemen of the media. I've been often attacked, on Twitter that I don't recognize women. No, I do. I mean, I have 2 wives and so many girls as daughters. Right. Regarding the question that you noted some flying activity around Abuja, that is the second question. I think this is occasioned by the information dished out by Nigeria Air Force that they will be carrying out some activity about this week to celebrate or to mark their week, I think tomorrow. So I think maybe a rehearsal of that. But suffice to say that every single flight that you would see, every single one that we would approve would be an essential flight. Every single one. And that essential flight, 98% of them will be connected to COVID-19. A few of them, maybe 1% might be either a repatriation, a request from diplomatic community, which must go through foreign affairs, or it might be repatriation due to illness of another kind, medical evacuation. And those evacuations would also need stamp of a teaching hospital, which we said before. However, I just want to share with you a discussion I had on Twitter with someone when I said that as a result of the extension of the lockdown, we would not be able to open our airports and airspace for normal operations. And someone said, kindly also stop all the VIP shuttle going out or going on. It makes no sense to lock citizens up and allow governors stream in and out of Abuja. In the first instance, they carried this virus into Nigeria. Now running around isn't okay. So I said to the gentleman that I agree with you. However, trust me, whatever is approved or whoever is approved to fly privately, governor or no governor, is an essential trip and a value addition. And 98% is related to COVID-19. There is no exception to governors. I had denied several of such flights, including 2 governors from South-South, 2 from Southeast, and by the way, 3 of them are members of the APC. But I think one is from North Central. Just to say that once you see a flight approved, it's diligently done. It must be essential, it must be COVID-19 related, or it's some other flights like cargo, essential cargo, that will bring in medicines or equipment or something related to COVID-19 or something related to our own well-being, like food and so on and so forth. So please test us and bear with us while this will last. It will be short, by God's grace. Thank you.
Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Good evening, everybody. The question was in regards to Nigerians in a prison in Tanzania, and if I was aware of that and the possibility of their being infected by COVID-19, and that now that I'm aware, what am I going to do about it? Well, I'm not aware, and it would have been interesting to have found out how the questioner became aware, because of course in this day and age all kinds of facts and figures and fiction floating around. But what I will do is get in touch with our High Commissioner in Tanzania, and then we'll take it from there if that is the case. Thank you.
Honorable Minister of Information and Culture.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and colleagues. I think the question that was asked citing two international journalists who contracted COVID-19. It's a very, very pertinent question. As I always say, as of today, there's no known vaccine or medicine for COVID-19. The only strategy that we are employing is actually the non-pharmaceutical intervention, which is advocacy, enlightenment, and sensitization. And this cannot be carried out without the support of the media. Therefore, it won't be wrong to classify journalists as frontline soldiers in the fight against COVID-19. But for the media, how are we going to get across to the public our advocacy campaigns, whether in the area of social distancing or not gathering or physical hygiene? So I agree with you absolutely that you are a frontline warrior in this particular fight against COVID-19. And of course, we've always used the analogy that this is a war, but this time around, it's a war with an invisible enemy. And I think just as our health workers, our airport workers, our immigration workers, and etc., are frontline soldiers in this battle, in this war, you also are. And I think it won't be out of place to take up this matter at the level of the task force and also engage your employers as to what kind of arrangement can be made for those of you especially who will be with us every day. We pray, yes, that none of us will contract the virus, but really, you are probably more at risk, also as much as risk as the health workers. And this also gives the opportunity to immensely thank the media for the support we've received from them. It is true that when I came here a few minutes ago, I spoke largely about NTA, FRCN, NAN, and VON. But the story will not be complete without giving, due respect and, giving appreciation to the private media. Also, TVC, AIT channels have all been calling our press conferences live without any charge. We thank you very much for that very patriotic, duty you've been doing. Newspapers. Arise. Thank you. I must say that it's not just private TV stations. Also, private radio stations have been giving us a lot of coverage. So we thank them, and even newspapers. And I want to assure you, by the grace of God, when we overcome COVID-19, you'll be one of the heroes of this war. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister of Environment.
The question was on access to potable water, clean water, especially for sanitation in this time period. Generally, water and sanitation, of course, go hand in hand. But right from the beginning of all this exercise, the lockdown and everything, Mr. President made it clear that essential services must be kept running, going, water, which is part and parcel of that. The synergy between Ministry of Water Resources and Federal Ministry of Environment to keep to make our water potable, whether it's pipe-borne water or people that live in the rural area. The Ministry of Environment, our sole responsibility to keep the environment clean, to prevent pollution both on the land, water, and air, particularly water pollution. We have a Department of Pollution Control, and we do everything humanly possible to safeguard the quality. Even if you are treating your water and sending it through the pipes, you still need to have good quality raw water in the rivers and streams to be able to clean it easier and send it. And where we don't have that, we make sure we maintain the quality and integrity of our lakes, rivers and stream, because we know there are people who have no access to pipe-borne water. The sanitation part, which is what the Federal Minister of Environment gives the technical advice, while the water resources supply the water, of course, you wash your hand at least 20 seconds under running water for the prevention of corona. Where you don't have running water, or then you can have somebody pour the water for you to wash. Where you don't have someone to help you do that, have the container, use your wrist, and wash and wash and wash. You can always improvise. But the thing is, make sure you maintain that sanitation. Thank you.
Honorable Minister of State Education.
Thank you. I think I'll just start with the question from Arise. Yes, because I was on Arise news program this morning, and I tried to explain how you can get online. I'm not sure why you're not, I'm sure it's not as fast as you will expect, but I'm sure some of the content will help with the work you do. If there are gaps that you notice, or in the areas that you may want to get some feedback, let us know at the ministry. We're still working on them. So anything you need in that regard, we'll work with you to do that. That also relates to your question about the number of out-of-school children we have. Since they can't, if this platform is not working so well, wouldn't that impact on how many children have access to learn? Of course, we know it is. In fact, this is part of our approach to solving the OS syndrome, the out-of-school children, because we feel that we're only just being drawn into something that we are already planning to escalate. In northern Nigeria, where we have a lot of children out of school, we have been working with the governors to formalize some of the institutional ways that they learn that are not necessarily formal. We've worked out programs with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs that we were in the process of executing. Some of the contradictions of this present challenge would be that you've heard that Kano State wants to deport some Almajiri children back to Katsina, 400 and so on. Some will go to Susan, so they will disperse them. And this has always been at the root of our argument that whatever policy we are going to do to have to accommodate all of them cannot just be state-specific. It will be holistic. And the coronavirus pandemic and the gaps that education has seen now will be used in solving our problems as we go along. This, your question, also dovetails into the question from the Voice of Nigeria, which in the main wants to know how those who are without light, those who are constrained by some of these things, they don't have devices, would then be people who we will want to bring onto an online learning platform. Yes, we are aware. There are no devices produced in Nigeria. Almost all of them are imported. People are limited by the ability to access them. And we can't provide light in every home, but part of what we're doing with Ministry of Information is to make sure that some of this is available to terrestrial broadcast media, not just online. And if you don't have devices, then you can watch them on TV. We are working, like I told you, with all the state governments, SUBEBs, because the SUBEBs get their funding from the implementation of the UBEC Act of 2004. And by that, it is a from the federal government. And with that, we can ask to collaborate, and we've asked them, and they are all online. I've given you how many states that have already published their timetables for the timing when you can put your radio on or your TV on to be able to access that. And when I first made my presentation, I appealed to parents that this is important, that they guide the students. Most of them may not on their own ordinarily. Trances can be at home or at school, so we still need your guidance and your participation. In the main, that is what was asked in Igbo, so I would now phase into that. Heni na juru maka ajuju iji mee ka elotu ndị mmadụ na-eshi mee mmụọ ihe ndị akụziri ọ ya ihe ndị m kọwaga kemgbe na onye nwere ohere ya mụọ redio ya ma ya nwega telivishọn ya ji isi ike nne ya na nne ya ha niile tinye okwu n'ọnụ a ha ga-anụ ihe ndị steeti ha kwuru sọ ga na-amụ akwụkwọ ma ihe ndị eji mgbe ọ ga-eji oge ya klasik ya mgbe ọ ga-eji wụrụ ya agbaghị ya mara mgbe ihe ndị ekwughe ma mịa na papa ya ha kụziere ya jie otu a na-esi mee ya wụrụ na ya onwe ya so na-amụ ihe amụgha na ụlọ akwụkwọ niile ndị na-enwe ha ọkụ ndị na-enwe ha mmiri ya oru mgbe oge o ruru mgbe eji eme ka unu agbagha unu na-eji egere ya maka onye ọwụla amụta anyị ọ bụ otu aka ka m jikwa aza na ọ bụ eziokwu isi na ndị JAMB na ha ewepụtara rezọtụ ka izizi ka ugbu a ha ga-ewepụta bụ ma emechaa mgbe ndị mmadụ akọwacha ndị ya fọrọ a ga-enwe ihe ndị fọrọ ndewonu.
Thank you, Honorable Minister of State for Education. We now invite the Secretary to Government of the Federation, SGF, sir.
Let me start with the last one, which I think nobody has addressed. Amaka, I think you asked whether we could divulge the content of our report to the President. What we will be reporting on. I think my paragraph 4 this afternoon is very explicit when I said, while the PTF continues to assess the impact of the lockdown preparatory to the submission of the report to the President, it presupposes that there is no report ready. So we'll have to wait until the report is ready and we'll submit it to Mr. President. Okay, I'm looking forward to it. Okay, when we get there, we're still expecting a report from Kano and the other places from the DG and the World Health Organization that will inform what... I don't have a phone here. I think it's your phone. So let me go over it again. No report is ready. We're yet to do a report. We'll wait until the appropriate time, get all the information that will inform the decision of Mr. President, and we will submit a report. And I did allude to it in my speech, in my remarks this afternoon. The other question has to do with somebody living with disability that reported to you. Can you forward the details of that report to the Secretariat of PTF? We will take it up from there once we can establish his or her identity and the officer that committed the infraction. We will take it up from there and ensure that no Nigerian is subjected to indecent treatment for whatever reason. The other one has to do with inventions and innovations that are taking place. I can assure you that after COVID-19, Nigeria will not be the same again because of the level of entrepreneurship, inventions, and innovations that have been demonstrated by Nigerians. But you know, like anywhere in the world, these machines, these products would have to go through some processes of licensing. First, accreditation, investigations, and eventually there are other patented or licensed for mass production and use. You don't invent a machine today and just put it to use. We are dealing with a life and death situation. I've seen a lot of products. Some were brought to my office by people from DICON. Excellent work. Others from different universities and different institutions. I think this falls under the province or the jurisdiction of the Honorable Minister for Science and Technology. And he did attend even an exhibition at the Eagle Square about 2 weeks ago, where some agencies that are directly under the ministry had produced walk-through disinfection process and also some ventilators. I believe after COVID-19, Nigeria would have stepped up its inventions and innovations, and by the time these things are licensed, we will not have to go outside this country to buy anything. There are a lot of groups that are producing even the PPEs that we are looking for. Most countries have run out of stock. But you see, even the local ones that are produced here would have to go through a process. There are bodies of government that have been established for that. Even the issue about the local herbal concoctions that are supposed to be used for treatment will have to go through a certification process through NAFDAC and other agencies before it will be deemed fit for human consumption. It will take time, but I believe that COVID-19 has given us an opportunity to begin to kick into manufacturing and production and scientific research so that after COVID-19, our country will be dependent on itself for the production of these items. The last is the issue about drugs, which was asked, and the fact that a lot of the youth that are supposed to be in school or gainfully engaged in other activities are busy having a field day with drug abuse. Well, before COVID-19, we had several battles and wars that Nigeria was fighting. First was the issue of insurgency in the northeast, banditry in the northwest, all forms of criminality, kidnapping, oil bunkering. All over the country we had these major senses of insecurity. But there's one that has reared its head, even before COVID-19. There's substance abuse, drug use and abuse, which for all intents and purposes is even more dangerous than the insurgency. And that informed the decision of Mr. President in 2018 to set up a committee, or a two-phase committee. PASEDA, which did the preliminary work, and MASEDA, the Ministerial Steering Committee, which I have the privilege to chair. The report of the PASEDA has been submitted to government. And MASEDA, which is the Ministerial Steering Committee, has looked at the report and have made recommendation to Mr. President on an interim level. And in the month of February, I think I did a memo to Mr. President asking him to approve for him to personally launch a war against drug abuse in Nigeria. Because I consider that to be one of the most dangerous wars that this country is facing today. Why do I consider it a very dangerous war? One, it is a war that can creep into a community and has the potential of wiping out 2 generations. When you have parents on drugs and children on drugs, these are 2 generations that can be wiped out in a go. So it's a very, very serious war. But the entire world did not prepare for COVID-19. COVID-19 has come and it has overtaken us. It's overwhelmed every country. And for now, the priority is on COVID-19. But I believe that when we get across this, the next battle that we must wage is to deal with substance abuse and drug use in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With the response from the SGF, we have come to the end of today's national briefing. But a few messages are coming out. One is from the education sector. It's directed at parents. Parents, please guide your children. Ensure that they engage in various online and terrestrial broadcast programs put in place by the education sector while at home. They are not on holidays. The second one related to that is that please, parents, watch and ensure that they do not indulge in drugs and other vices. Above all, please remember, wear your face masks, ensure good personal hygiene, observe social distancing, report any sign of symptoms. Do not stigmatize any infected person. God bless Nigeria. We'll see you tomorrow by the grace of God.
Today, night don't reach for me to settle blessing for you. When this girl first got this my shop called network, now so on top of NTF 4G phone, now this girl could press. I provoke. I know in short, reach what time, eh? The ambulance make her tell her to make she mash her act. Come up from my shop. And later I come realize, say this girl go snap her. Put her for inside internet. They take her to do adverts. Now I make customers that they come with my shop. Blessing, I want make you help me manage my shop now.
Madam, but I think Nami and Blessing start work the same time.
Now you and Blessing start work the same time. Blessing, you better start on the T-shirt for top of your 4G MTN phone.
Business makes sense on top super fast and reliable MTN 4G. Join MTN, make you enjoy double data.